He's made in America until the cowboy's gone. It's Tracy Lawrence on the Music Universe podcast.
That was a damn good intro, buddy. I'm proud of you. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. I just heard your computer go off.
Yeah, I forgot to mute it.
Oh, well, oh my gosh. Talk about a 90s country icon today on our show.
Oh, just so many hits. I remember seeing him at Six Flags St. Louis, and I was a fan. I've always been a fan. I love Tracy Lawrence, and I'm getting chills just doing this intro right now. It was such a pleasure to chat with him. It really was. Just a world of knowledge as far as country music as well. You know, just how he came into the business and where it's at now. Completely different as a lot of these acts are, and you know, it's just super cool to chat with him. Tracy Lawrence, welcome to the Music Universe podcast. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing good today. Can't complain.
Right on. How have you been doing during the quarantine? What have you been doing to stay sane?
You know, we're really blessed. I've really been doing a lot of work on the farm. We have our house is at the end of a road, and we're in the middle of about 400 acres, so we're kind of isolated anyway. And I've been bush hogging the pastures and taking care of the cows and getting cutting down trees off the fence lines. I've got about 2 trailer loads of firewood that I've got stacked up, and I've been cut a few new trails in the woods for the side by sides, and so we've just been doing normal stuff. I got my garden planted, which usually it takes me a little bit longer to get to, so I've been able to get on top of things that I usually miss out on in the spring.
Are you doing any writing, any like Facebook Lives or Instagram Lives?
You know, I have been doing some writing. I've written 4 songs while I've been down, and I'm scheduled to do another write tomorrow.
Awesome. And you do that through Zoom like so many people have been?
You know, some of it, but some of it's just, I've got an open area out here, and guys have been coming out, and we've been kind of keeping our distance between each other, but we've been writing in person. I mean, I'm kind of in a different situation than a lot of people because I've got so much open space out here, but it's been pretty normal, man. To tell you the truth, it's been extremely normal where we are.
And you just released a brand new single. It's called When the Cowboy's Gone. Tell us about that and the inspiration behind it.
You know, I was blessed enough to be brought in on that song. Guys that I write with on a regular basis, Carson Chamberlain and Wyatt McCubbin. We've been working together off and on for years, and I was actually they had that song started, so I got to get in on part of the chorus and write the second verse. So the idea was not mine, which usually I'm the one with the idea. So I was lucky enough to be brought in on that one.
Well, it's a great neo-traditional country song, and I appreciate you releasing new music during the quarantine. I know a lot of people had planned and then they pushed it back because they either, you know, maybe can't tour around it or didn't feel it's the right time. So I appreciate you releasing that, as well as the video that was actually filmed much of the time while you were on tour.
It was. The bulk of it was done while we were on tour, and the rest of it was shot here on my farm in Middle Tennessee. You know, we talked about whether or not we felt like it was the right time to release the song, and I felt like I knew that there would be a lot of things shut down for a lot of people, and music has such a powerful impact on people that I just felt like that even though we weren't going to be able to tour around it for a while, and we wouldn't be able to show the revenue off of it for a while, if the song of choice would have been of a different subject matter, we might have rethought it. But I just felt like the song was so strong, and I think it's a traditional song that's got a great message that people need to hear right now.
Yeah, and it certainly does. It's a beautiful song. The question I have is, can you talk about this song in the larger context of the Made in America album and what the direction was on that album for you and what you looked for that record?
You know, that record changed direction a couple of times on me. I had initially, it took me about 2 years to record this project. I've been working on it for a while, and I had 2 or 3 songs that I had written that I went in and recorded and kind of got started. I started off with a song called First Step to Leaving, and It Ain't You. I wrote those early on in the year, 2018. So yeah, way back then. Like I wrote both those in like January or so. And so I went in and did quick demos on those, and I started going to some publishing companies and places that I had found songs before in the past, and we're kind of in a spot where the material that I was being pitched and the songs that I was finding either they felt really dated, they are things that I had already been pitched over the years because I was asking for traditional country stuff. I wanted a honky tonk traditional stuff, and I had something in my mind, and I just wasn't finding it through the normal publishing routes. So it kind of pushed me to the scenario that, you know what, I've always said I was going to write more of my own record. And so I did. I just started booking up writing appointments, and over the next several months, I just knuckled down and wrote a whole bunch of stuff. Now, during the process of that, I was thinking, that I wanted to get a little bit edgier with this record. And so there was a few songs that I found in my publishing catalog. There was a song, Stay Back 100 Feet, South Coming Out, and Work on My Willie were things that had been in my catalog for a while. And also, golly, there was three up tempos in the end of the record that had been laying around for a while, and I didn't write them, but I had publishing on them because the songwriters were signed to my publishing company in the early 2011, 12, 13, somewhere in there. And so I went in and cut those songs, and I thought I'm going to cut a little bit more of a edgy rock country record. And once I got those done, and then I started demoing all this other stuff that I'd been writing, it kind of took me to another place. So it changed gears midway through the record. It was strange. But overall, I really felt like I really wanted to make an album that was very reflective of who I am and where I come from, the music that inspired me over the years. I didn't want it to be dated. I wanted it to be fresh, but still at the same time have those traditional elements that I had success with in the 90s and the 2000s. And strange enough, the title track off the record, the initial working title was for a song called Chicken Wire on the album. And the very last song that we wrote, the last songwriting session that I had with Adam Sanders and Rick Huckabee, I had the idea for Made in America. And because I felt really strong that I needed an Americana song. I'd never done anything like that before. And so I came in with the idea, and I knew it needed to be a big guitar anthem kind of thing on the end, and I kind of spelled it out. And we wrote that song in about 2 hours, and it immediately changed the whole feel of what that record was about. It changed my sequencing. It changed everything. By the time we got that song done, I knew that was going to be my first single off the record.
The album came out in August, and you're still releasing singles. How do you decide what to release, and how do you decide how to space them out so that we can have new music at radio from a record released 7-8 months ago, which I love to see?
I wish I had an answer for you. There was some turnover in the management company at the first part of the year. We had initially, part of the management team was wanting me to go back in and start recording new music, and I was adamant that I wasn't ready yet. I'm kind of at a place where I don't want to get on that treadmill of cranking out an album every year and a half, because I've done that, and I really don't want to I don't want to do that anymore. And, we had kicked off the tour with Justin in January, and that was supposed to carry us throughout the entire spring. And I didn't want to try to be writing a record and being forced to go in the studio while I was on a big tour, and the possibilities of that parlaying into the fall as well. And of course, all that stuff got cut short because of the quarantine and everything that's been going on. But, I was planning on writing that album out, as we got into the fall, and then maybe cutting 4 or 5 songs and kind of seeing where we're at. But I really wanted to slow the pace down. I didn't want to get forced to record when I wasn't ready to. And to tell you the truth, as we got into the quarantine, we had talked about releasing when the Cowboy was gone, and all the numbers from the streaming platform and all the socials and everything were coming back that this was the highest testing thing that got the most reaction from everybody that had listened to the album. And we thought, since we're in this downtime, let's consider possibly releasing this song and seeing what kind of traction we can get with it. So it was just kind of a situational thing that led us to where we are with the release of this.
And I love the tie-in that who you are and what your music is. And whenever we have an artist who had hits throughout the decades, we love to ask their opinion on music today, because you've stayed very true to the Tracy Lawrence style. What do you think of the new country music coming out today?
Some of it I like. There are some artists that I really dig. I'm a huge Luke Combs fan. I love Jason Aldean's stuff. there's some of it I like and some of it that I don't particularly care for. You know, my personal taste lend more into powerful vocals and rock and roll guitar and the leaning into the wind kind of things a little bit more edgy. The either hardcore country or a little bit of a rock and roll tinge because my influences go back to like Skinner and some old Eric Clapton and you know ZZ Top and those kind of things mixed in with Strait and Keith Whitley and Waylon and Hank Jr. and all that kind of stuff. So the softer pop bro country stuff, yeah, I'm proud for the success they've had with it, but that never has really appealed to me. And I look at it from this perspective. If I was cutting my teeth again, and I was working the bars and I was playing other people's stuff, and I was trying to develop my own sound. There's a lot of the stuff that's being played that's current right now out there that I wouldn't want to work up. It wouldn't be something that I'd gravitate to that I would want to play personally.
Right before you came on, we were talking about our favorite songs by you, and mine, bar none, every time it comes on my phone, I have to crank it up, is Excitable Boy. Just that southern rock grit.
You know, and I felt it was strange. There's been several things that I've cut over the years. Some of those album tracks, like "Excitable Boy," and "For the Love," that was on that album that was titled from that. There's been some really edgy rock and roll stuff, and we have tried to release a couple of those things in different situations over the years, and my fan base just never has accepted that well from me. I can place them. I can throw them in a live set periodically, and they'll respond a little bit to it. But it feels like my crowd and my audience that I've built a career off of wants to hear the alibis and the time marches on and the I see it now and the more traditional stuff. They'll tolerate a little bit of the other, but when they hear like when the cowboy's gone, the feeling that I'm getting from that is even though that's fresh and new, it's still very much me, and I think that's what my fans have come to expect from me.
Where does Everywhere But Hollywood, my favorite Tracy Lawrence song, where does that fit in that kind of scope with your fans? Do they like it? Do they let you play it? Or is it one of those that,
You know, when that album was out, when we released that album, and I was working the material on that record, it was one of the things that was in the set. But to tell you the truth, I never got a pro or a con or a thumbs up or a thumbs down from anybody about that song, and I always liked it. There's been a few of those like that over the years. It's and I've always looked at it this way. It saddens me there, and I won't mention names, but there are a few artists that are out there that I know that have had a slew of hit records and made careers out of some great music, and for whatever reason, they're just not passionate about what they do, and they don't like to play a lot of the stuff that their fans have grown to know them through, and I think it's a shame because to me, as a fan of music, when I go see an artist, I want to hear them play the hits that I'm familiar with. If they want to throw a few new things at me and tease a few other things, that's fine. But if I go pay money to see an artist, I want to hear songs that I know, and I try to honor that as a fan of music. I try to be that kind of artist for my fans, and of course, but it gives me a great body of work to play around with a lot.
but as somebody who's releasing new music, who's constantly putting stuff out there, how do you balance that? I mean, you have to put When the Cowboy's Gone in your set because it's the single you want to play it when we're back on the road, of course. How do you balance out the new stuff with those hits?
You know, we have played 5 or 6 off of this record in the show since that album was released the latter part of last year. But I play them all together. It's like I'll come out and do a couple of new things. Like I open the show with Made in America, do like a honky tonk thing off the record, like It Ain't You or something like that second. And then I'll just kind of scatter them through. So you can hear something new, and if you like it, you like it, and then I'll go back and play 3 or 4 hits in a row. So, and the hardest thing for me is that, I came up in a radio era where, you could tell a hit was a hit. You could feel the groundswell when you had a record that got into the top 10 and it started to really move and you went into power rotation around the country. You could feel that energy from the crowd. It was just different. And nowadays in the place and the time that I'm at, where I'm releasing secondary radio and streaming platforms and using a lot of social media and stuff, you know, it's so data driven. I see people singing the words out there, and I can tell that they're familiar with the songs and they know a lot of the new stuff. But it's not like that over the top, blow your hair back kind of energy that you used to get from having an impact record on the radio.
Well, that's because that's for better or worse, and probably worse, the singles, the music, it's been so parsed out and so commodified, for lack of a better word, that it's, to me, it's about seeing the artist live and being that passionate. But I think the way young people, people my age, unfortunately, are encouraged to consume music doesn't instill passion. Is that fair to say?
I think it is very fair to say because, where there used to be anticipation of waiting for that new music or that single from your favorite artist to come out, you have the ability to stream or play anything from virtually anybody of any genre at any given time right in the palm of your hand. So there's no anticipation of waiting for that stuff to come, and I think it takes some of the specialness away from it.
And I think too that's why a lot of artists haven't released albums. They mostly do singles or EPs because it's just not there anymore.
And we're having those conversations too, but I don't. It's just really difficult for me to wrap my mind around just recording 4 or 5 songs. And we're talking about the possibilities of doing that next year and looking at a way to structure some things in. But in the world that we live in now, it's more about. I think people's attention span is it's kind of shorter than what it used to be. And as you look at how to change your marketing strategy and how to look at how to find your revenue stream and how to connect with your target audience to keep the ticket sales around, because we all know that the cash engine in this format these days is all the live music. You're not getting the royalties from the album sales. Streaming doesn't pay that much, so really a lot of those royalties that we used to count on that were tremendous when you were playing the chart game back in the day are just not there anymore. So it's all about feeding that social media monster. So I'm having to get my head right about dropping a song a month, or maybe 2 songs a month, and going in the studio and just feeding content instead of putting that type of record together. And I don't know how I feel about that yet. We're having a lot of internal conversations about getting to that place, though.
Yeah, and I know one thing that kind of bothers me because I'm a traditionalist. I still buy CDs. I don't like hearing half the songs before the album's released. I like the one or two
All of
singles,
that
and then
bothers me.
yeah, and then
Yeah,
when I
and
buy the
and that
album, I like to hear it all.
and I agree with that, and I want to see. I don't particularly care for albums that have just been kind of pieced together, so it's cut here and cut there and all that, because it takes the flow of the specialness of the artist's vision of putting a compilation of songs together. It's not just about throwing 10 or 12 songs on a package. It's about how you sequence that record and what your feel was and why you put that song where, and why that last song that you picked for the album, what did you need, a tempo or a ballad or a waltz or whatever. It's about the craft of putting a record together that makes a fan want to listen to it from top to bottom. That's the way I love to do music, and I don't know if, yeah, I think I'll miss doing that if I don't put a record together that way.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And how will your music, I guess, be influenced in the new Storming Heaven musical you co-created?
I'm totally detached from my career as an artist when we were writing those songs. That came when we were writing the music for that play. It was all derived from the book Storming Heaven. And my co-writers, who are in the theater world in New York, they would come down and we would spend days at a time, and they worked on the script, and it was always evolving. I'd never worked on a project where, I mean, literally we've been working on this thing 5 or 6 years. And so as the script evolves and you do dry runs and you'll go do a reading with 2 or 3 musicians and a cast of nuts and bolts cast that's just sitting there going through it, and you say, well, we need something else here, and it's a lengthy process. But what I did like about it is being able to write to a storyline and writing to a scene. As a commercial songwriter, when you're trying to write in that 3.5 minute window and trying to write to radio and trying to write to what people have grown accustomed to hearing is the length of a song. when you write for a stage and you're writing for theater, you're writing for a moment. You're writing. You're thinking about the lighting, and you're thinking about the props and whatever's going on around it, and the actors engaging with each other and all of that stuff that's going on. It's a fascinating change of approach for me that I really enjoyed.
I love to hear that because I went to theater school in high school, but I always was a country music fan. So anytime those two worlds collide, it's just amazing. Did you have the theater bug from a young age, or is this a project that just kind of came to you?
I did. I took some theater stuff in college. I was a mass comm major in college, and I did some plays in college, and I actually I was on a choir scholarship. I sang in a choral ensemble in high school, so I was around the theater world a lot. I enjoyed a lot, but my passion was always in traditional country. But I absolutely love the theater. I mean, I love to take my family to TPAC here in Nashville. I mean, we've seen Cats and Phantom of the Opera. I was involved with the uh, uh, a play called The Civil War that toured a little bit several years ago with Frank Wildhorn, who has had a tremendous career in New York. So I've had the opportunity to play around in that world a little bit over the years, and I dearly, dearly love it.
Is it, and it might be too early to ask this, but is it possible that you guys would release a soundtrack to the musical?
We were actually in February. We were starting to work on all that stuff, and it is still planned to try. It's such a hard world to play around in, even to get something on an off Broadway stage. I didn't realize how difficult it is, even when you know all the right people. The funding that it takes to get it off the ground, and obviously in the situation that we're in right now, all that stuff has been pushed on the back burner. But yes, we were going through the songs of all the stuff that we had written and looking to see how we put a production together to represent the theme of because it's the music. It's not going to be like doing a traditional full production session. The way that we're looking at it, it's the period would be the 30s and 40s in that early 20th century in Ohio and West Virginia and through the coal miner era when they were still living in you know camps where the company store controlled everything. You didn't get paid. It was a different way of life. So it's banjos and mandolins and acoustic guitars and no percussion. It's very earthy in nature. So we really want to make sure that we put it together the right way, the people that are into that kind of thing can find it. I'm hoping that we are able to keep moving forward with it. I'm hoping that because of the financial constraints that have happened to everybody over the last couple of months, that it won't be too long before we can get back on track.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting album for sure. You've been hosting Honky Tonkin' with Tracy Lawrence for a while. Tell us how you became involved with actually doing radio.
We've been doing Honky Tonkin' for 5 years. It amazes me. I'm kind of blown away by it. And we're in 115 markets around the United States, which is huge for a syndicated radio show.
Yeah.
We had initially started off, I'd gone to Sirius, and I had actually worked there and trained on the stuff, and we were trying to get our contract worked out, and that whole thing kind of fell through. From a financial standpoint, I just we didn't come together on what I thought my value was, if you know what I mean. And
Yeah,
so when they wanted me to do it for free, and I didn't want to do it for free.
of
So
course.
and yeah, of course. So we looked and at that particular time, 5, 6 years ago, the music from my era, you really there weren't very many radio stations, even secondary radio stations, that were playing much of that. We were kind of in our bro phase, and I felt like it was an opportunity for me to keep my brand alive and do something that I enjoyed because I love the music from that era, the 80s, 90s, and all that stuff. So we put a package together and made a couple of pitches and wound up with Big D and Bubba's company over at Silverfish, and their producer is my guy that takes care of me, and we do everything through Compass Media, and I make a little pocket money, a little walking around money, and everybody's happy. I go in a couple times a month and tape a couple shows and do some interviews. I actually did my show yesterday, and and got to interview Loretta Lynn yesterday for about 15 minutes. She
Oh,
was on phone, but I got to spend a little time with her yesterday, which was very cool for me. You know,
Hey, you need to pass.
I enjoy.
Sorry,
Go
go ahead.
ahead.
I was just gonna say you need to pass along your booker to us. That's amazing.
Believe it or not, she actually called us and wanted to do my radio show. You know,
Oh, that's so wonderful.
I got to interview Kenny Rogers before he passed away. My
oh
friend
wow.
Joe Diffie, rest his soul, was my very first interview. I've had Ronnie Dunn. You know, I've had an opportunity to really, and it's amazing to me. Even people that I know, you know, people that I've hung out with and spent time with over years. When you sit down and you start conversing on a music level like that, you find out about things about people that you really didn't even know. So it's been really amazing for me to sit down and talk with even people that I'm close to. You know, you find out so much about them that you never even thought to ask when you're just hanging out and drinking beer.
All right, of course.
So I have to ask you. Buddy said to ask you about the Mission Possible thing that you're doing. As our last question for you, can you tell us a little bit about that turkey fry?
So Mission Possible was started. It'll be 15 years this fall. We actually fry turkeys in the parking lot of the Nashville Rescue Mission the week of
Hmm.
Thanksgiving. Like I said, this will be our 15th year. It was started with me and a handful of friends that had been frying turkeys on Thanksgiving morning for friends and family, and you know there was just a couple of us, and we got the idea that we wanted to do something for our community, and it was something that we enjoyed, and we thought that we could drive awareness to the plight of the homeless and the things that we cared about. So the first year we did it, we actually borrowed propane tanks from the church congregation where we all went to church, and we got a hold of the rescue mission, and they said they'd let us do it, and we got a bunch of turkeys, and I think that first year we might have fried 75 or 100, you know, with our own personal fryers. And our initial charge, it wasn't about raising money. We were just there to drive awareness to the plight of the homeless and bring awareness to and give a different perspective from just the people panhandling on the corners and all this normal stuff that you see. And after that first year got off the ground, the next year it grew, and we started picking up sponsors. And you know, I fought doing a concert after it for years, but 5 years ago they finally talked me into doing a concert the same day, which was exhausting because that's a long day. I usually get there about 6:30 in the morning, and now that the concert happens, it's 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning by the time I get done. So we
Oh
cook
yeah.
all day long. We usually cook 500 to 600 turkeys, clean the parking lot up. I'll shift over, do sound check over at the Wild Horse, do media and do my VIP meet and greets, and then start bringing everybody in and do a full show. We did full production shows for the first few years, but last year, last couple of years, we decided that we would just try the guitar pool. It was a little bit more personal, and it just felt like it was a little bit better scenario for what we were trying to represent from all the you know, in that situation. So we do get 4 or 5 acts, and we sit up there and tell stories and play guitar and sing songs and just and enjoy being able to do something great for our community. It's been a big blessing for me.
I love that. And, you know, we love you. We are big fans of you and everything you do, from the music to the community outreach to everything. Tracy Lawrence, this was a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank y'all so very much. It's a pleasure to talk to you, and I hope we get a chance to do this again.
What I love about these conversations, and you heard it here with the interview with Tracy, is you can tell, no disrespect to Tracy, when you're doing an interview and then you're having a conversation. And if it doesn't start off immediately like a conversation, what I love about what we do is it becomes a conversation, and and I felt that at about the 6 7 minute mark of that conversation. I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a tight 15 17 minute interview. He went for almost half an hour with us once he got comfortable with us, and we are so grateful. Tracy, if you're listening, thank you very very much for doing that, for making it a conversation, and for spending the time with us to talk about so many topics.
Oh yeah. Once we got going on the music, it was just rip roaring, and there we went. And we didn't even want to wrap it, but you know we had
No,
another one behind it that actually, the moment
called
we
in
hung up,
early.
they came on. So it was rather pleasant and just so much fun. And I'll be glad when he and the rest of the musicians out there can get to touring again, because we need that.
absolutely, we do. And you can bet I will be first in line to see him.
Oh, absolutely. Him and hopefully the Justin Moore show. I know they've been touring, like he mentioned, and hopefully that will add some other dates and hit
Wait a
our
minute, who's been
areas.
opening for who on that tour? I don't know anything about this tour. What's the tour? Tell me about that.
It's Justin Moore with Tracy Lawrence. Yeah, they've been kind of. I think it's kind of like a joint headlining tour. It's been a while since that release came out, but yeah, it that would be a great show.
Would be. I hope we can get back to it. But until we can, we're grateful that they have the time to talk to us. So until next time for the Music Universe podcast, I'm Matt.
And Buddy, thanks for listening, and keep checking out themusicuniverse.com.